To choosing us this afternoon, embattled former Chief Justice Gertrude Araba Torkonoo's legal woes have deepened as ECOWAS Community Court has this morning dismissed an application filed seeking interim measures to suspend her removal and restore her to office with full entitlements. According to the court, the application failed to meet the criteria required for the grant of interim reliefs. It held that Justice Araba Torkonoo had not demonstrated any, quote, imminent or irreparable harm, unquote, that would justify the urgency of the request, especially as the application was filed almost 3 months after the alleged violation. The court further noted that the applicant's own conduct undermined her claim of urgency. As a result, it declined an assessment bid to assess the remaining requirements for provisional measures, which it described as cumulative. With the request for interim promotion measures as deemed unsubstantiated, the court dismissed the application in entirety. Well, dismissing the preliminary objection, the court held that Justice Araba Torkonoo had a prima facie case of a violation of her fundamental human rights, and that ruling that the High Court had jurisdiction to hear the case. So there are two different cases. Now, the Attorney General has been given 30 days to file his response to the former Chief Justice. And that is the update we have for you this afternoon. We've been speaking to lawyer for the former Chief Justice, Gertrude Araba Torkonoo, Aikwe. He spoke earlier on JN Today, and he has been providing details about the court's decision. We'll be back in the studio to discuss that, but listen to this.
I don't see anything newsworthy about what we are talking about. We're all in this country. When the government was sued in the ECOWAS court, we knew exactly what the lady was asking. And yet, we went ahead and announced a new Chief Justice. The person went through vetting. The minority tried to draw attention to the pendency of these issues. Parliament will not have none of that. The minority had to walk out. Eventually, the person nominated was vetted, and the person was then sworn into office. What do you think is the effect of all this on the case? They have to say, place a fear complete, on them. That, look, we have done all these things already. So what's the point of you going to hear this application? So to me, this thing is not newsworthy. There's nothing to talk about, because we all know that as we speak today, there is a new Chief Justice who has even been sworn in. So what are we looking for? You think the application, reverse it and go back or what? There's nothing. That's why they are saying, let us go into the merits of the case. Since the application was filed, they have refused to respond to the case itself. And the court is saying, go and file your response within 30 days and come and let us go into this matter. As for this criminal offense, it's of no use, it's of no value, because you have fixed them with fear complete already. You've done all that you want to do. So we'll hear this matter. Let us go into the full matter itself.
Okay.
That is my take on this matter.
So, per our simple understanding, this does not affect the ledger of the substantive matter at all, in any way?
At all, because when this case was filed, the first thing they told everybody was that the ECOWAS court has no jurisdiction. Some of us kept telling them that it is not true. The ECOWAS court operates whether or not a case is pending in your country. ECOWAS court will still hear, so long as it has to do with the violation of human rights. But they were too full of themselves, kept saying that the court will dismiss it, because there are pending cases in the Supreme Court, High Court, and so on, so which have not been dealt with. Now that ruling has gone against them, that they should file their process and let's hear the matter. Rather, they are talking about this, excuse my language, useless ruling. What is the point? What would that achieve? when they have gone ahead and done everything that they wanted to do on this end regarding the new appointment.
Is this,
what is the value?
Is this normal?
To me, it is of no news. But what is newsworthy is that their preliminary objection has been dismissed and they have been given 30 days to file their processes.
Okay, and so you're proceeding with or without? You're proceeding to the most substantive matter.
That is it.
Well, let's flesh this out here on the pause. Joining me now is a lecturer at the University of Ghana School of Law, Professor Kojo Pieje. We appreciate your time here on the pause. We've just been hearing the official response of ECOWAS Court. Earlier, we've heard different legal arguments that ECOWAS Court lacked jurisdiction to even hear the substantive case, which has to do with the abuse of her fundamental rights. Now we've been hearing from the court just tell the Attorney General that they need to file a defense. And so that argument about the court getting or lacking jurisdiction, we got it wrong, did we not?
Hello?
Yes, Prof. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Can you, there was a break in the...
Okay. I was just wondering, the argument about ECOWAS Court lacking jurisdiction in this case is one that individuals, especially in the legal field, have raised time without number. But today we heard from ECOWAS Court just directing the Attorney General to issue a direct response to the allegations made by the former Chief Justice on the substantive case with regards to the abuse of her rights. So clearly we got it wrong when it comes to the assumption that ECOWAS Court lacked jurisdiction, did we not?
Yes, certainly. The ECOWAS Court doesn't lack jurisdiction with the particular case that was brought before it by the former Chief Justice. The point is that the court is set up to deal with human rights cases. And so where there's a violation of a right of a citizen of ECOWAS, that person is entitled to bring a matter before the ECOWAS Court of Justice, irrespective of where the case has been or whether it's a case has been initiated at all before a local court. And this is an important exception that the ECOWAS Court of Justice has, because normally one would have been expected to exhaust local remedies, that your matter should have traveled all the way to the Supreme Court or the highest court of the land, and you lost the case and you still feel aggrieved, or you don't feel that your matter has been addressed properly, or you've received the required redress before you can go to an international forum. But there's some exceptions that the ECOWAS Court has, and that is on the basis on that it ruled that the case can go ahead, and therefore Ghana as a state has 30 days to respond to the petition sent by the former Attorney General.
And should the court establish that indeed her human rights were abused throughout the process, what does that mean for the procedure she was subjected to that even led to a removal from office?
Yes, as things stand now. But first of all, let me react to the basis for the rejection of the temporary measures. I think that there was the decision is, I don't fully agree with the basis for the decision, because I think the question that was raised by the former Chief Justice is that there was a problem with how the committee was conducting itself. Okay. And so it was at that point that she began to raise issues about the whole process. And so if that was a starting point, then in my opinion, there was no delay on her part, and therefore the issue of the emergency issue involved, I don't think it arises.
But then if you just look at the court and the concerns they have raised, really, in filing her case, pushing for the injunction, she made the argument that if they do not intervene, there would be imminent or irreparable harm. Now, they raised concerns that it took her 3 months, really, to file that application. If you raise concerns about the urgency, should you not have acted earlier? That's the court's position.
That's why I'm also saying that it was at the level of when the matter, she raised the issue about how the committee was conducting itself, at least according to the father, that's what I know. And if that is at that point, then it means that she did not question the process before then. And so time will begin to run against her from the time the committee began to sit, and she had concerns raised about how the committee was conducting the whole process.
We already have a substantive Chief Justice that has been sworn in already. Should the ECOWAS court determine that indeed the former Chief Justice, Gertrude Torkonoo, was subjected to any form of human rights abuse, what does that mean for the process that led to her removal?
At this stage, what I feel is that the court will not rule regarding her ability to come back to the position of a Chief Justice, or let alone a member of the Supreme Court. But it is likely they may find a case of violation of her rights. She raises a number of human rights violations, such as the right to work and fair trial and so on. It is possible she might win one of those grounds, and the government may be asked to compensate her for the rights that were violated in that respect. But it wouldn't be about coming back to or removing the currently installed Chief Justice and bringing her back to that position. Having said that, I also want to chip in and say that the delay on the part of the court in giving the preliminary ruling is also something that is of concern, because this is a temporary measure that they applied for. And normally, such applications are attended to with dispatch, so that it will avoid the situation where, at this case, it becomes moot, as Mr. Otu rightly said. So such matters is like making an application for injunction before a court. It has to be heard as quickly as possible so that any rights that are likely to be violated can be addressed before the substantive case is gone into.
But should the court indeed rule that her human rights were violated in any way or form, doesn't that question now the competence of the committee set up, the Justice Poman Committee, to look into the even case itself that led to her removal? What legal revenues then will be available for her, or avenues that would be available for her moving forward, should the court rule in her favor?
The kind of justice or redress you get out of that will be some form of reparation, and it may come in the form of compensation, some monetary compensation that should be paid to her for the damage to her reputation.
But isn't that enough bait to go and challenge the current Chief Justice and demand her reinstatement?
Like I said earlier, it may not result in the reinstatement of the Chief Justice. At this stage, we've gone past that stage. So it's going to be a situation where human rights, some compensation will be enough. So
it's fair complete based on what you're telling me. So then it raises the question, really, if she's fighting a lost battle, why then embark on this journey in the first place?
Well, I think when she started, we had not reached this stage. And having reached the stage, I think there are a number of demands that she brought before the courts. So if one doesn't succeed, I think another can succeed, and that is the human rights reparation that she's asking for. So it wouldn't be nothing at all. There might be some compensation for the harm that has been caused to her reputation.
We have an ambitious new Chief Justice who's hoping to restore confidence in the judiciary. He has a daunting task ahead of him, looking at the circumstances that led to his appointment, as well as the removal of the former Chief Justice. As we just look at the judiciary now, zooming into the work of the judiciary, can we indeed say the judiciary is independent, looking at all the incidences that have happened, and how really can this new Chief Justice restore confidence in the judiciary?
Well, of course, we all know that the image of the judiciary has been battered seriously as a result of the circumstances surrounding the removal of the Chief Justice. But I think we cannot question the integrity of the current Chief Justice. He has proven himself over the years that he has been on the bench to be a capable, competent, and independent-minded person. So the hope is that he will be able to restore confidence in the judiciary, and that will help to ensure that we will be able to rely on the judiciary. The image of the judiciary will be improved, and people will have trust and confidence in the judiciary. But that alone may not be enough. We already have questioned the procedures through which the Chief Justice is appointed and the way that the Chief Justice is removed. So we are looking forward to the recommendations of the committee set up by the President to review some provisions of the Constitution and make recommendations for changes. So certainly that should address, for example, the issues that we have identified as gaps and loopholes, which the present administration exploited to cause the removal of Justice Torkonoo from office.
Thank you so much, Prof, for your time here on The Pulse. Well, we're still looking at other key issues that have come up today. Let's take you now to ECOWAS, because several supporters of the new Patriotic Party have gathered at the Accra High Court as the former managing director of the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company Limited, boss Edwin Alfred Provençal, is expected to make an appearance. Some of the supporters who arrived as early as 8 a.m. say they were hopeful he will be released today after spending 8 days in the custody of the Economic and Organized Crime Office, ECOWAS. An Accra Human Rights Court on Tuesday reviewed Provençal's bail condition, reducing the initial 60 million Ghana cedis bail sum to 30 million Ghana cedis, with two sureties, paving the way for him to potentially meet the terms. Provençal was arrested on November 10 at the Kotoka International Airport while preparing to travel to Maputo. He is facing allegations of causing financial loss to the state in connection with the Gold for Oil program. And joining me now is my colleague Fatal Bayaga. He's on the grounds for us. Fatal, so far, what's the update? And you've been engaging some of the supporters. What exactly have they been telling you?
Firstly, just about an hour ago, the frontage of the ECOWAS office was taken over by MPP supporters who say that they are not happy with the manner in which the former MD for boss has been treated. In fact, they say that he's been held by ECOWAS for the past 8 days, something they describe as a deliberate attempt by the ruling government to intimidate or persecute former appointees of the government. They were here in their numbers, the protesters from the Human Rights Court to the ECOWAS office. In fact, they say that they came as early as, some of them said they came as early as 7 a.m., 8 a.m. They were waiting for ECOWAS to present the former MD to the court for the case to be determined, but that did not happen. So when they waited so much for long at the Human Rights Court, and they were not seeing the ECOWAS officials bringing the MD, they moved to the ECOWAS office, mass up in their numbers, demanding his immediate release. So let me speak with the communication officer for Adenta and also a PA to the former MD of BOSS, Stephen Kwesi Akwa. Stephen, you've been here since morning, trying to make sure that your boss is released. Talk to me about some of the concerns that you've been raising.
Thank you very much. Our concerns are very simple. Yesterday, the court ordered that Dr. Edwin Provençal should be made to go home based on the conditions that the court spelled out. I am privy to the fact that yesterday, ECOWAS was supposed to do their part. They started a process we believe that EOCO is done with their part, and they are supposed to send him to the court this morning for the registrar to also finalize the bail terms. We've been here since morning. We've been here at EOCO. We've gone to the Human Rights Court too. My information, my intel tells me that for Human Rights Court too, they are done with whatever they are supposed to do. What they are waiting for is for EOCO to send Dr. Edwin Provençal to the registrar to also check whether or not all the processes that they asked the EOCO to go and do as far as the sureties and everything is concerned, they are done. EOCO is undermanned. EOCO is not ready to send Dr. Edwin Provençal to Human Rights Court 2.
Perhaps they are not done with their review.
If you are not done with your part of the bargain, you have to go to the court and tell the court that you asked me to do A, B, C, D. If you haven't gone to the court to say that, I don't think you have any justification to keep him in there.
But you have been here since morning. Have you been able to engage with the EOCO officials, and what have they been telling you?
This morning, myself, when I came here, they didn't allow me to even speak to my friend and the boss, Dr. Edwin Provençal. I did my checks at the registry, at the courts, and I think that whatever is supposed to be done as far as the bail condition is concerned has been done. I can tell you as a matter of fact. If EOCO says no, they are not done with what they are supposed to do, the best thing is go back to the court to tell the court that they need time to finish with what they are doing. Other than that, I don't think it is right for EOCO to still keep him there, because when you look at the laws, I don't think EOCO has the mandate as of now to keep Dr. Edwin Provençal in their custody.
It's been in their custody for the past 8 days. How do you feel about that?
That is why we went to court to tell the court that they are violating his human rights. So, and the court granted that. And the court has ordered that you cannot continue to violate his human rights. So, release him based on ABCD. That ABCD, I believe, is done. And so, EOCO, if they think they are not done, or they claim they are not done with that, they should go back to the court to say. It's just frustrating. You saw people are massing up here, trying to create some kind of agitations and all that here. I don't think it's proper. I mean, this modern day democracy and politics, we should grow above personal interest or personal scores. And then when anybody gets an opportunity, you try to, play to the gallery as if you are keeping the man because somebody somewhere or whatever it is, somebody is trying to show I am the boss or whatever. I don't think it's good for our democracy.
Is that to say that you've not had the opportunity to see your boss?
Since morning, I have not seen Dr. Edwin Provençal. I haven't seen him since morning. They've not allowed me to see him. It was only so I've not seen him since morning.
So far, based on the information you have, are you hopeful that he will be released today?
I believe in God, that the God who allowed him to be here and also ensured that the court rules in his favor as far as the bail is concerned, that same God will be with him. And I believe in the next few days, he will be released. They can decide to keep him.
Talking about few days.
They can decide to keep him till thy kingdom come. But you see, there is always tomorrow.
Because some of your supporters who were here said that they were not going to leave until he is released. Is that to say that you are going to be around protesting until he is released?
You saw me trying to calm them down because I don't want a situation whereby there will be so much chaos there. So I asked the supporters who came here to go back home. But my brother, if it goes beyond tomorrow, I may not be able to guarantee whether they will be here or not. Yes, that's a fact. I may not guarantee that they will be here or not. Yes.
Who will be here or not?
The supporters, you saw them here. Okay. I may not guarantee whether they will be here tomorrow or not. And when they come, you know how you keep somebody's father for 10 days. He's been asked to go home, and you are trying to keep him beyond even the order of the court. Ask yourself, is that the democracy we are practicing in this country?
So you think that this is a political persecution?
It is, but if not, why would they keep him there? Why would they keep him there? I was in court yesterday. I don't think EOCO made any case of a charge or any accusations against Dr. Edwin Provincial. All they are saying is that they are investigating him for what? Causing financial loss to the state and whatever. Where is your evidence? If you have that evidence to charge him for causing financial loss to the state, I believe by now you should be able to send him to court for the court to determine whether or not it is right for him to go home whilst your investigation goes on, or you keep him in your custody whilst you continue with investigations. I don't think it is right. I don't think it is democracy. I don't think it is right for his human right as well. The Constitution is clear on human rights violations, and it is clear. I mean, we should be honest to ourselves. You understand? If it is not for political persecution, what else? Tell me.
So before you go, you also had issues with the hefty bail conditions. In fact, even though the court granted a bail variation and then the amount was slashed from 60 million to 30 million, you still had issues with that. Talk to me about that.
That is why Ghanaians are saying that this is just a political witch hunting. Because how could you arrest somebody and say you are investigating the person? It is not you have investigated or you have evidence to that effect. You understand? You are investigating him. Why would you ask him to come and lodge a 60 million amount of money before you release him? Excuse my language. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? I don't think it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to anybody. That's why Ghanaians are asking, why is EOCO keeping Dr. Edwin Provincial in their custody? It's weird. Trust me. It's weird.
Thank you very much. So the man you heard is Stephen Kwesi Akwa. He is the communication officer for Adenta and PA to the former boss at BOST. So that's been the situation here at the EOCO office. Some of the MPP's supporters, they have left, but they're saying that they are going to mass up again here if the office or EOCO does not release the former MD of BOST. They say that this is a clear political persecution, and this is something that they will fiercely resist today and in the coming days. Fatao Bayaga for JoyNews from the EOCO headquarters here in Accra.
Thank you, Fatao. Now, you're still watching The Pulse. After this quick 10, we'll be back to tell you about the activities of illegal miners and also tell you some of the new initiative government has put in place. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. Well, I told you we'll talk about the budget. Indeed, we are ready to talk about the budget. In the 2016-2026 budget, I beg your pardon, the Finance Minister, Dr. Kassia Latofosen, outlined several expenditure measures and reforms as part of strengthening public financial management. The minister also revealed that an audit of government arrears and payables uncovered unverified claims amounting to 10.4 billion Ghana cedis. Well, this audit, commissioned by the Auditor General and conducted with technical support from PricewaterhouseCoopers, highlighted significant irregularities. The total arrears amounting to 68.8 billion Ghana cedis. And when they did the scrutiny, they realized that it included unpaid invoices and interim payment certificates submitted by contractors and suppliers. Well, join me in the studio this afternoon is Mr. Hayfron Abwaji. He's government and public sector partner with the Assurance Line Service of PricewaterhouseCoopers Ghana, to share some thoughts on some of the public financial management reforms needed to curb some of these issues. And even before we dive into the specifics, really, you have been in this space for a long time, looking at our public sector and looking at how some of these things go unaccounted for. 10 billion Ghana cedis, that would have been lost to the state if not for this audit. How then do you think we can deal with the loopholes in our public sector?
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon to all your viewers. I think first of all, we need to ask ourselves, how did this come about? So as part of the IMF program, we, as a country, were taxed in terms of, as part of the structural reforms programs by the IMF to conduct, this special audit. And it's because, obviously, we had accumulated so much, debt as a country. I know you're aware of, the debt, restructuring that has to be undertaken by, the previous government. And then of course, measures that were required to ensure that as a country, we keep our debts under control and be able to sort of deal with our fiscals. So the IMF has set this structural benchmark that by end, August, 2025, they were expecting a report on the audit of arrears and payables that were submitted, as at December 2024. So the Auditor General was actually tasked to do that, to audit those arrears. And then PwC was, together with another, of our Big Four firm, UI, was asked to do this, audit. So yes, in terms of, as sort of outlined by the minister, there were quite some, issues there.
And let's look at the specifics, because when he came on PM Express, he put more details into some of these things he raised on the floor of Parliament. 10 billion Ghana cedis in rejected claims. What were the irregularities you spotted?
Okay, so I will not talk about anything that obviously the minister did not sort of mention in the budget. Okay. And the simple reason being that, of course, as he indicated, the final report will be issued by the Auditor General. Okay. So we can delve into the deep, the specifics. But he did mention the fact that, one, you had instances of, IPCs raised for work that were not performed, which, in simple terms, entities had submitted claims for which work had not been performed. And therefore, definitely, the rule of the game in audits, the Auditor General had to, of course, reject those ones. The minister mentioned close to 1 billion was in what they called bank transfer, advice, had gotten to. These are transactions that had gone through all the approval processes and up to controller, and the only difference, or the reason why it was not paid, was because obviously there were no funds. And when the Auditor General looked at all these, claims that were submitted, which had gone through the procedures, but without supporting documents again.
And that's shocking. He also made mention of some 8.6 billion Ghana cedis, and that is still under scrutiny, according to the minister, due to missing documentation. Right. And yet, it had gone through the process, and government were willing to pay these individuals?
So again, it's linked to the issues that even resulted, like the minister said, to the rejection, where you have situations where stores receipts, vouchers or SRAs have been signed, and then only for the Auditor General to discover that, of course, the items in question had not been received by the entity. And in that case, yes, then the question is, what is government going to pay for if you've ordered some items, you've completed all the documentation, but then you are asked, the entities are asked where those items, are located, or where is it, and they will not be able to show. So the 8 billion, which of course is outstanding review, is also as a result of the fact that the documents that have been submitted by those ministries, departments, and agencies were not complete. And in the view of the Auditor General, certainly from what obviously the minister put out there, if those documents are not complete, certainly you cannot draw a conclusion on that. So I believe that by the time the Auditor General, and if, as you may be aware, the Auditor General, together with the Ministry of Finance, had issued or published, some statements on its website in terms of some of the entities that were required to come up with additional documentation. From what we've been informed, based on what the minister said, these entities are compliant. So definitely the Auditor General is going to look at those information and then get back, to the Ministry of Parliament as to whether those 8 billion portion of it may possibly move to the rejected or may be accepted, in addition to the 47 billion that was reported by the minister in the 2026 budget.
And are these cases isolated, or do they suggest some sort of systemic weakness that needs fixing?
I think the minister hasn't mixed words when it comes to, the need for us to strengthen our public financial management, system, and to come out with, strict or stronger reforms around that, those areas. Because if you look at the issues that he mentioned, certainly we need to look at, for instance, the reforms around the GIFMIS. In the budget, he was very clear to look at the reforms where GIFMIS and GANEFs will be integrated, but it's not even that alone. There's a need for that system to be integrated with all the various key systems, so that as a country we can have more visibility in terms of how we view our arrears and payables. I think one key reforms is pushing also has to do with the need for regular expenditure reviews, because this activity that he commissioned has uncovered 10 billion already. Would there be a need for us or for the Auditor General to make this as quarterly, at least a quarterly review, so that we don't wait till we get to sort of a year after, etc., before then we get into this situation? So is it an isolated? I would say that if you go back to even previous administration, etc., there are clearly systemic issues within our public sector financial management that we need to, as a country, address it. It shouldn't take one government, changing power. And I think I've said this in various national accountancy sort of programs, where I say it shouldn't be that our public sector financial management system is anchored on changes in government. One government comes, then that's when we see reforms. No, we need to have a robust system, irrespective of whether we have a new administration or whatever. The system must work, and all the institutions that have been taxed within the public financial management ecosystem must work. And if they are not doing the work as they should, the minister in the previous budget, and which he reinforced in this budget, then we need to apply the needed sanctions. As you may be aware, the PFM Act had been revised, had been updated to really enforce the sanction regime and make it very clear. So it's important that we enforce what we have said. In fact, Ghana is noted to be one of the best when it comes to, having laws, having, policies, having systems. But when it comes to implementation, I think we are not able to enforce it as we should. So there's a need for us to do that. Yes.
And I've just been looking at some of the key things that have come up in the audited report. And I'm wondering, what safeguards really should we put in place to ensure that incidences like this do not reoccur?
Okay, so as I indicated, first you need to crack the whips where needed. Like I said, let's enforce the various provisions, the sanction regimes within the law. because if people breach these laws and they know that irrespective of your color or irrespective of the level within the PFM ecosystem you dealt with, I think if I'm sitting back, I would say, okay, this is what happened to this person. I don't want to go there. And if we hold people accountable, certainly we should. We shouldn't be able to minimize, these incidents. And the need for us to have that robust, systems. We have spent a lot as a country in deploying systems and all that. The integrated financial management system, as I said, the GIFMIS platform is there to be used. There are processes, there are approval processes, there are requirements in terms of support, the documentations that needs to happen, there are integrations of these systems that needs to happen. What we are saying is that this needs to be what's enforced.
And how often, really, if a public institution is operating based on your recommendation, how often should the firm be audited, just to ensure that their books are okay?
Well, it's a standard practice that at a minimum, at the end of each year, MDAs should be audited. However, there are several elements within the chain which allows the Auditor General, or if government requests, to audit any item at any point in time. And you can see from this budget the attempt by the Minister of Finance to even bring in additional layers of office, like the Value for Money office that he mentioned. Of course, the details as to the mechanism, the structure, and as to whether it's going to duplicate or complement, existing structure is there. However, I think that whichever audits and at whatever frequency that needs to happen to give value for money, to make sure that value for money is achieved by us as a country, he is at liberty to do that.
And let's go into your recommendations. I'm wondering what recommendations you gave to government after working closely with them on this audit. No, because it's quite interesting, some of the things you found out and how this can actually change our financial management system in the country.
Well, so we have made some commentary. I think we issued that in terms of our, commentary on the budget overall. We have obviously provided some kind of recommendation as to how, from a tax through public financial management and looking at the various sectors, we have given our general view of some of the areas that, as a firm, we think that needs to be strengthened. Because, like I said, the Auditor General has not issued its final report. I can't speak to all the recommendations that he intends to put out there for the purposes of, for readers to obviously comment. So, until that official statement or official report comes in, then of course we can possibly go into the details.
But I'm sure you'll be supporting government agencies moving forward, just to uncover some of this rot. What should we expect from you moving forward?
No, I think as a firm, we are open, to support government drive its sort of agenda in ensuring that we are operating, in a fiscal discipline, environment. And as PwC, our purpose is to build trust in society and solve important problems. Where we are now, we need to ensure that our systems are working, our processes are working, and as a firm, if we need to bring our expertise on board to help, government build this. And you will admit or agree with me that, look, there are few areas that we, government has tried to be fiscally disciplined. You can see, some progress in terms of our economic indicators and also our sort of indicators pointing to the right direction. So if we sustain, this throughout the year, the IMF program is coming to an end next year, around May 2026. Question is, can we sustain, and are we able to sustain this discipline? So as a firm, any value-added support that we can give to make sure that we all achieve the needed objective. Now that the city is, stabilizing, I think it gives the business community some kind of comfort and some sort of at least ability to plan going forward. But the question is, will we be able to sustain that? Yes, if we're able to sustain that, certainly then businesses and all of us will be happy and be able to live in the country and plan better with all the various activities that we need to perform.
Now, just before we wrap up, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the 2026 budget. We're looking at fiscal discipline. Based on your overview of the budget, what does it say about Ghana's public finances?
Yes, so I think, like I did mention, I think we are, going in the right direction. So far as we're able to sustain this path, we should, as a country, I think our public financial management, and seriously, if you look at as I said, the reforms and all the budgets, since the fund program, the IMF program, the various structural reforms, Ghana as a country have been very disciplined. And that has resulted, as you might have seen, in us being able to, pass some of these reviews. The various structural benchmarks, the governments have been very, very sort of intentional, making sure that we obviously address it. And if we are able to sustain that post, even the IMF program, like I said, then even the better. So yes, I see some good signs at the end of the day. I mean, and we all need to work together. We need to make sure that institutions that we have empowered them, and we need to empower them. Those institutions across the various, public financial management chain, the Internal Audit Agency, the Auditor General, the MDAs, internal audit structure, compliance, structures, the accountants who are in the various, division. Look,
what will empowerment mean, though?
What will
empowerment mean for them? Since that's what we're pushing for, but what exactly would they need?
So empowerment is, of course, there are several. They need a capacity. If they need the needed capacity in their areas, we need to provide them in terms of number, in terms of logistics. Okay, those have to be provided, and also whatever law, whatever provisions, and as far as the the PFM Act is concerned, to make them feel and to make them relevant, I think is key. So if the laws are saying that, like I said, people. If an internal auditor, for instance, issues a report and the MDA, management take action on it and, of course, implement, or where there is need for sanctions, they apply, the officer who is there will feel empowered to be able to obviously do that, because then they know there's an action that is taken on those reports. If the Auditor General do the same, we need to make sure that the various ecosystems, I know you have been following the Public Accounts Committee, hearing, and you see some of the things that are coming up. Question is, what are we doing after those hearings?
Public hearings.
If we go and we make sure that we are sanctioning where needed, and of course it has to be supported by clear evidence, because there are legal implications of that. But if we are intentional about applying the rules, if we are intentional, the various accountants or the various actors within the ecosystem are using systems that governments have invested so much money and not bypassing. The minister had mentioned it. The tools, as I said, the governments, sometimes entities process transactions outside the governments, okay, and which is clear breach as far as the public financial management concerned. There have been projects that have stalled, etc. What feasibility, okay, were performed by those MDAs before they got to a point where they realized that, of course, we are no more going to pursue this project, and that is a cost to the state. Okay, there's a law, there's an LI, 2020 backing how, if you want to carry out any investment, project as a public institution, you should follow. Is there pre-feasibility studies that have to be done, value for money, etc. All those things have to be followed. So if an MDA is not following, yes, whichever the MDA and whoever are through the chain, whether they are public investments, unit division that is not doing their work there, they have to be called to order, because at the end of the day, you and I are taxed, that is at risk. We are just coming from our budget digest event, okay, and the commissioner was, there. Grateful to thanks Commissioner General for attending. But he made a point that look, for us to be able to get to where we are, we need to broaden the tax net, and if we broaden the tax net, you and I, at least you expect that each and every one gives him 8,000 Ghana cedi in the year, okay, for us to be able to get to our revenue target. But where are we going to, and how are we going to do that?
And that brings me to my next question, really. Critics have argued that Ghana is locked in this IMF cycle, where we come out and we're back again because we lack fiscal discipline. Should we exit this program? How do you propose that this administration can maintain the gains and not take us back to the IMF?
Good. So I made that point, and that's what I'm saying, that whatever we have invested in as a country, in terms of our public financial management system, in terms of sanctions, because we, as PwC, we of course we have a global network. We know what happens in other countries. Sometimes, and to be frank, those countries are not sort of, so to speak, too special, than Ghana. In fact, Ghana is seen as an icon, of so many great things. The only difference is that we are not enforcing, what we said we're going to do. The fund program, as is put, is a homegrown, program. Is written jointly by both the IMF and, the government. And those things are not coming from anywhere. It is us saying that, look, we're going to make sure that we maintain this best sailing. We're going to make sure that we're putting the systems in place so that we don't go overboard. It's us saying that we're going to implement robust, accrual accounting, reform. It is us saying what we want, so the only difference is that, yes, there's a third party there called the IMF that is making sure, checking you to ensure that what you said you're going to do, you've actually done it. And then you have taken on the various matters or recommendations that you said you're going to sort of implement. You are actually implementing it. So really, it's not rocket science. If we are disciplined as a country and make sure that there is no politics, I always say that we cannot play politics with public financial management, because the first word is what? Public. Okay? And it doesn't know any color as far as public financial management is concerned. So all of us must be involved. All of us must make sure that the processes, the systems that are put in place are working. And this one is not only politicians, it's both civil servants and citizens. All of us, civil society, everybody should be part of it. Post-IMF, all of us should be disciplined. All of us should hold governments accountable. All of us should play our part so that at the end of the day, we make sure that we don't go back, to the IMF, because it clouds, it blocks government. We have really gone through a lot as a country. I mean, you are not able to borrow external, you don't go to the external market to borrow because everybody is not too sure what you're going to come out with. So I think that we, for once, when we exit this program, we should promise ourselves that we're going to be disciplined and make sure that we indeed be disciplined. And I think that we have what it takes as a country to be able to achieve this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hayfron. And Albert told me today is your birthday, so happy birthday. And that's how we wrap up the conversation here on The Pulse. So please stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick turn. Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. So other stories now. Leipzig carries the heavy memory of the most extensive surveillance system in modern history. Today, inside the former headquarters of the Stasi, those lessons are resurfacing, not as distant history, but as a warning for a world that is increasingly shaped by artificial intelligence, facial recognition, and data tracking. And for younger democracies like Ghana, the question is no longer whether technology will reshape freedom, but how much of it are we really prepared to sacrifice? My colleague Jacqueline Answayebwa has more in this report.
In Leipzig, inside the former headquarters of the Stasi, one of the world's most feared secret police systems, discussions focused on a global concern, how democracies protect personal freedoms in a digital age. It's a conversation with lessons not just for Germany, but for Ghana, where data systems and surveillance technologies are rapidly expanding.
This building once housed the Ministry of State Security, the Stasi, the secret police of East Germany. At its height, it controlled a vast network of informants, monitored private conversations, intercepted letters, and documented the lives of millions of citizens in painful detail. Inside these walls, friendship had no guarantees, and privacy was a luxury the state did not permit. But in a world where tech giants collect our digital footprints and government debates the limits of security versus privacy, parallels are difficult to ignore. In conversations with Vice Chairman of the Leipzig Citizens Committee and Director of the Museum Round Corner, Tobias Oletier, one message was clear. The dangers of state surveillance did not disappear with the fall of the Berlin Wall. Instead, they have evolved.
We also have to look at the goals. Which were the goals of the East German government? They wanted to spy at us, they wanted to keep us under control. It was quite easy. Nowadays, there are many reasons, and some of them are reasonable. Others are not. So in the end, it's a matter of data.
When asked whether today's technologies resemble early signs of authoritarian rule, the director described them as an incredible danger. He warned that societies must decide for themselves how much risk they are willing to tolerate and to what extent we make ourselves dependent on technologies that can track, predict, and influence human behavior.
Die Sicherheit und die Freiheit.
The technology you can probably cage in laws. The other two issues that will always depend on each other, and each society has to find its balance. How much insecurity it's going to allow for more in freedom.
On the question of how young democracies like Ghana should balance security, technology, and individual freedom, his response was blunt.
Eine riesige Gefahr, der wir uns da aussetzen.
It's an incredible danger that we're exposed to, or exposing ourselves. The society has to set what they're willing to cope with. Often a matter of the personal attitude. How do I deal with AI? To which extent do I expose myself and make myself dependent on these technologies? But then, of course, when we look at how it seems to work nowadays in countries like China and Great Britain as well, that the whole country is cluttered with cameras, and they are able to cross-check with databases of pictures of all citizens. This is where I think this is too much. No, that shouldn't be.
The tools of control may have changed, but the responsibility to guard our freedom remains the same. And for countries building digital futures, the question remains, where do we draw the line? Reporting for JoyNews from Leipzig, I'm Jacqueline Answayebwa.
Well, the Africa Digital Rights Hub says the continent's rapid digital transformation driven by AI, blockchain, and big data has made the protection of personal information both an urgent challenge and a major opportunity to confront this evolving landscape. The organization is convening regulators, policy makers, industry leaders, and civil society at the 2025 Data Protection Africa Summit in Accra from December 1 to 4. According to the organization, the summit will underscore the urgent need to safeguard personal data in the fourth industrial revolution while promoting responsible, secure, and inclusive digital development across the continent. Well, join me now via Zoom is the Executive Director of Africa Digital Rights Hub. She is Ms. Teki Akwete. Thank you so much for your time here on the Pulse. I'd like to start with protection of data, really. But then before I delve into that, let me get a sense of what exactly World Intellectual Property Organization is all about.
World Intellectual Property Organization or data protection. So the WIPO essentially looks at intellectual property, which is has to do with things like trademark, copyrights, that protect mainly ideas. And I think that's very distinct and different from data protection. So I don't know whether, the question is meant to address intellectual property or it's more directed at the data protection issues.
Well, we're starting with addressing intellectual property, and then I'll take you to data protection, which is quite key for me. So let's start with the 4, and then we'll move on to that.
Okay, so essentially, intellectual property deals with, it's a legal concept that essentially looks at protecting ideas. And the mindset behind it is actually to promote or enable innovation. The concept behind development of intellectual property is that people have ideas, and if we do not create systems that enable them benefit from those ideas, they would not be innovated to come up with those ideas. And so the systems or frameworks is meant to protect innovators that come up with ideas so that they can profit from those ideas. And IP goes into things like copyrights, which protects artistic works. It goes into things like trademarks, which protects specific marks that pertain to businesses and the like, and then patents that are meant to protect innovations or unique innovations that come up in societies as well. And there are a whole host of other literary works that gets protected in different formats in the IP space.
And then I was just engaging with a friend a while back, and we cracked a joke, really, that within the next 5 years, you may struggle getting good medical care because all our young medical doctors are currently using artificial intelligence tools in their classroom, not even reading through some of the things they are delivering as project work. How can we ensure that there are enough safeguards moving forward, even as we embrace artificial intelligence in our day-to-day activities?
So I'll start off by saying that AI is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because we've seen the capabilities of AI tools, even in the health space. It actually enables the doctors or most of the people in the health sector do their work in a much more efficient way. But this is not devoid of the risk that we are seeing. And so there's the risk of what kind of information is being used, how accurate is it, do we have the right oversight to ensure that we can actually trust these systems? And I think that is why in developing all of these technologies, it is very important to have frameworks that will provide those guardrails when it comes to the innovation of these technologies. And it's quite interesting that I'm coming up just after the Stashi lessons have been shared. You would see from a lot of things they've changed, but they've not necessarily changed. Right? Our principles as humans continue to be the same. And so in any society where technology or any form of tool is going to be used to undermine us living our lives well, to undermine surveillance, to undermine our security and safety, we are likely to see a pullback on those systems. Even when it's implemented, at some point we're going to see an end to it. And that is why putting in place the right legal frameworks is extremely important. So what are the things that, for instance, data protection, cybersecurity, electronic transactions laws, electronic communications laws meant to do, even intellectual property laws, right, are meant to ensure that the guardrails are still there. So irrespective of what medium is being used to ensure that we live well, we will still be protected, because whether or not we're using analog technology to deliver on health, right, it does not mean that we should compromise on the health delivery aspect to the customer. And that will still be important. And that's why we continue to promote digital rights, particularly as we know that as Africans, we cannot run away from digital transformation as a key concrete or a critical tool to accelerating socioeconomic development. But in so doing, we have to be very mindful of the fact that these tools do not provide all the results that we need, and there has to be guardrails, and that's why we need some of those frameworks in place.
But do we even have those frameworks in place here in Ghana?
In Ghana, we do. I mean, there has, I think, in the last 10 years, a lot of work has gone into the space. We, for instance, have data protection laws, we have cybersecurity laws, we have electronic transactions laws, even our copyright and intellectual property laws are being defined to actually protect the development and use of technological tools. What I would say we are currently lacking, right, is because I always say that the framework alone is not enough. The framework requires the capacity to be able to drive it. And I think what has been missing in Ghana and across most of the African countries is the right capacity to ensure, for instance, that data protection, which is required to enable trust and adequate use of personal information in a fair manner. When it comes to data protection, for instance, the right capacity, we are lacking, a comprehensive capacity that can enable us ensure that when people's information are collected, it is adequately protected. Likewise, we would see that in cybersecurity and a whole lot of the other spaces. So we have the legal framework, but we need the capacity and the manpower that will actually ensure that we are not just, we're putting our money where our mouth is, if I should put it, bluntly that way.
And just as we wrap up the conversation, in this day and age where it's very difficult to erase your digital footprint, how can we ensure that especially children and young people online are not exposed to harmful content, and of course ensure data protection for any sites I log on to? From a technical standpoint, how do we deal with that?
So I think that this is why, so the framework is an important one. The framework provides the overall outlook on how and what we need to do to ensure that we're doing these things right. So in the case of children, if you're providing online content, how do we do it? But the actual practical implementation of these legal framework also requires capacity and the right capacity. And as I mentioned, we conduct a lot of research, not just in Ghana, but across Africa, and that is still lacking, right? And so as a company that engages, for instance, with children in the digital space, how do they implement the data protection laws in a way that ensures that children are adequately protected? And unfortunately for us, because technology is growing and demand, and we get bombarded with a lot of these technologies, as often as possible, sometimes we're not even able to keep track of what is happening, because almost every day these technologies are changing. The risk is increasing. We are repositioning, how to address safeguards and other things. And that is why for us it's very important to build capacity, which is also one of the reasons we're actually pushing for the Data Protection Africa Summit, to really bring together experts and an opportunity to revisit some of the issues and look at some of the innovative ideas that are coming up in the space to help address the challenges that you're talking about. And so to answer your question more directly, I would say that the best way is to continue to educate ourselves on these issues so that we can have the right approaches in addressing the challenges in the space.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your company. Away from that, children in Kwayanku and Kwesitri Kromi in the Agona East District are paying the hidden price of illegal mining miles away from the town. The Ayensu River, once their lifeline, now runs brown and polluted, forcing families to risk illness just to fetch water from it. School days are disrupted and childhood dreams are crushed, overshadowed by sickness. More in today's episode of Dear Mahama, #StopGalamsey.
"12-year-old Kofi should be in class 6. Instead, he's repeating class 5. He did not fail. He fell sick for a week, missing his exams. His family says the illness came from the Ayensu River, polluted by illegal mining upstream. Kofi admits he loves bathing in the river. Today, he only uses the Ayensu to wash his clothes. For many households, the Ayensu River is the only water source for drinking, bathing, and washing, and the impact on children's education is growing. Some miss classes and others arrive late or tired. 14-year-old Kelvin Tifo from Kwesitri Basic School is one of them.
Pipes are not flowing because of the illegal mining going around. It makes the water unsafe. They use mercury for doing that illegal mine. That makes the water contaminated for human beings. So if you drink it, it makes us ill. I am happy to be a Ghanaian, but sometimes I feel like I don't want to be a Ghanaian because of these bad things going around in this country.
So let's talk about things we can do to conserve our water bodies. How can we conserve our water bodies? Yes.
Teachers in both communities confirm this is a daily challenge for many people.
Since we opened up school, we've not even get water, and it's about the 4th week this. We've not even getting water. And it's affecting even our academic work. Because the children need to go and fetch water from other sources, which may even delay our the resumption of our classes. It's very terrible. We don't know even how to control it. Because usually we used to report to school 6 a.m. By 6:30 we are observing silent reading. You need to sit. Now, since there's no water, they need to be roaming about searching for water. Classes now begin somewhere 7:38, which affects our normal academic contact hours. Of course, it is very terrible. It is very terrible.
Nana Obrebua has lived 81 years by the Ayensu. He feels the weight of disappointment. The sight of the river his generation is leaving behind haunts him.
Oh, the children, they are going to suffer. Mostly at my age, how long? Can I spend another 30 years? I can't spend more than 30 years. Even 10 years, only God knows. But my children and my grandchildren, they are going to suffer. I'm not happy. I'm worried.
I want the government to help us produce water for this country, and villages like ours, they have to get safe water for us to not be ill, and we should be healthy.
Kofi lost a year of progress in school. Kelvin starts most days with the burden of finding water. Across Kwenyako and Kwesichukrom, parents and teachers say polluted water is now shaping in children's futures in ways they cannot control. If nothing changes, more pupils will fall behind, more families will struggle, and more futures will be affected. Emmanuel Jivanu, JoyNews, Central Region.
President Mahama has meanwhile announced that the cabinet has given the green light to the Public Tribunals Bill to enable illegal mining offences to be tried before public tribunals to speed up prosecution and strengthen enforcement. He disclosed this when the Christian Council called on him on Tuesday.
I get the reports every day. Every day you find anti-Galamsey, you find Galamsey pits, people being arrested and all that. Another problem we have is so far we've arrested more than 1,700 people. The courts to even process these people is a problem. So many of them we've been forced to grant them bail. And in some cases, when you go back to look for them, they've left the area. And so one of the things Cabinet did the last time was to pass the Public Tribunals Bill so that we'll push issues to do with illegal mining to the public tribunals, because they would adjudicate faster and let justice be seen to be done. And as the tribunals have it, they have a judge, and then they have 4 other members who either have a legal background or of a certain level of understanding of the law. And so if that comes, we would be able to process, these cases against illegal mining even quicker.
Just before we leave, TCL, in partnership with Ghana Air Conferences, has unveiled a new energy-efficient air conditioner. The company believes the device will help ease the pressure on household budgets while promoting cleaner, healthier and more sustainable cooling solutions in Ghana. My colleague Ramat Bashiru has more in this report.
The collaboration between TCL and Ghana Air Conferences has produced an air conditioner designed not only to save energy, but also to purify indoor air. The partners say the new device is expected to become a game changer in the country's energy-saving effort.
And yes, the TCL air conditioners are officially launched. Let's show some now. This is the official unveiling of all the TCL air conditioners right displayed here. We have from the saving, the freshing.
Sales manager of Electroland Ghana Limited, Vincent Azabak, says the new TCL air conditioner is engineered to drastically reduce power consumption while enhancing air quality.
TCL has two major air conditioners. The first one is known as the on-off. That's your traditional air conditioner. Then they have the inverter air conditioners that save you up to 40% on your power consumption. So we usually push for inverter air conditioners because you're able to save on your power consumption, and they're very silent. And as you can see from the new lineup, the new air conditioner comes with a new feature which introduces fresh air into your homes. So there's a particular pipe that introduces fresh air from outside, fresh air that's being filtrated definitely into your home. So you are breathing fresh air and you are getting the best cooling you can get.
Marketing manager for TCL West Africa, Fixon Dennis, also highlighted the advanced air purification technology integrated into the unit. He noted that the innovation positions TCL as a leading brand in sustainable cooling solutions on the Ghanaian market.
Today we've launched the Fresh In, we have the Breeze In, we have the Vox In, we have the Save In, we have the VRF, we have the light commercial ACs, we have the duct ACs. We have launched a whole range of all kind of air conditions you can find in the market. And then, as previously said by my boss, pricing is very competitive when it comes to this product. Also, aside pricing, as you said, we think about our consumers a lot. So you are giving them more technology in terms of saving money, more technology in terms of quality air when they are breathing in their rooms, basically. So per our energy efficiency, you are saving up to 75% compared to normal air conditions. And you are saving up to 37% again compared to inverter air conditions. So it means that you are saving more than any other air condition, up to 75 plus 37%.
TCL believes the new air conditioner will help households cut electricity costs while promoting healthier living environments. The company and its partners say they will continue investing in innovations that support nationwide energy conservation. Ramat Bashiru's report for JoyNews.
And that's how we wrap up the polls. I appreciate your company. For more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Faustina Safo. Have a pleasant day as you enjoy the rest of our programs. Good afternoon.